one good thing that comes out of this corona mania is that we now have business and government talking publicly about substantive economic reform. Now, it's a nice change to see captains of industry focused on their company performance rather than using their limited shareholder money and their plentiful CEO ego on some indulgent social justice campaign. Even the government seems to have rediscovered the need to redress the impact of some of their, shall I say, more indulgent decisions, with mentions of tax reform and deregulation. I only hope that tax reform is government speak for lower taxes and that deregulation means unwinding red, green, blue, brown, yellow tape because it's strangling productivity. But there is one area of reform that desperately needs to be addressed, and that's industrial relations. It's only common sense to know that companies cannot succeed without workers, and workers need successful companies in order to get a job. So why is there so much conflict in the IR system? Well, we also know there are powerful bodies who love the power, the influence and the money attached to corralling workers and fighting bosses. In recent years, we've seen some of those organisations trade workers' entitlements away for the benefit of themselves. We've seen illegality, misuse of members' funds, and a very cosy and questionable association with industry superannuation funds. We can do better by reforming legislation to modernise our IR system. But first we have to acknowledge some brutal truths inherent in capitalism. Good employers will move heaven and earth to keep good employees. We also know that some people are more employable at higher rates of pay than others are. To be blunt, some people just can't be hired at $30 an hour, but they could have all the benefits and the skills development of a job if they were prepared to work for $15 per hour. Our minimum wage system effectively prices some people out of the job market. And we also know that given a choice, workers won't stick with bad employers. And that's why we have to give them a choice of employers from which they can choose. The age-old divide between capital and labour is behind us. We need voluntary cooperation for both to prosper. An IR system that reflects that need is necessary now more than ever. Well, I can only imagine, Nicholas, you've got very strong views on these, so strap on that Castro-like hat. Give it to me straight.
Well, look, I'm going to have to be really frank with you on this one, Corey, because sadly you have fallen for the oldest mental trap in the book. You've seen a series of extreme events, a crisis, and you've said, aha, this gives me a good reason to pull out my ideological agenda, take a megaphone to it and say this is the solution to all our problems. Well, Corey, I've got news for you. Attacking workers' rights and the people who represent workers is not the solution for Australia going forward. I was Rahm Emanuel, Barack Obama's chief of staff, who famously said, don't waste a good crisis and use it as an opportunity for reform. But you've got to, in some way, link the reform to the crisis and a pathway forward for your country, which is good for people. And I'm sorry, Corey, there's just nothing that's good for people about attacking their rights in the workplace, attacking the organisations that represent them, and frankly, who in their right mind is going to vote for lower wages for themselves? Who is going to vote for less protections in the workplace, less security in the workplace? The answer is nobody. So you should just give up on this crazy idea now and not embarrass yourself anymore. One little bit of history, though, that I do think is important to remember here, Corey. No, you had a good go, Corey. Just let me finish on this point, because I'm going to try and give you something to work with now. If you go back to the Accord process in the 1980s, you'll see that the Hawke and Keating governments very cleverly included a social wage component into the Accord process. So Hawke was able to say to the unions, OK, I'm bringing in Medicare. That is, in effect, a very big boost to your wage through the social wage. And because of that, you should be prepared to accept some compromises elsewhere in your workplace. Now, in this current crisis, I can see a similar opportunity, and that's in the government, quite, I think, rightly stepping into the childcare area and saying to the workers of Australia, we're going to offer you free childcare. They're also doing it by offering people the JobKeeper and JobSeeker allowances as well. So there is a way forward here by saying by the government, we're going to boost your social wage. And we're prepared to allow that to keep going forward.
I was right about Fidel
But
Castro's
now we
hat,
want you to
wasn't I?
make some other compromises to make our workplaces look better. That's a possible pathway forward, Corey.
Nicholas,
what do you think about that?
Nicholas, thank you for the history lesson, which is completely unnecessary, and thank you for conveniently overlooking the issues that I raised, such as productivity. Right, has been on decline in this country. You talk about people trading away workers' rights. Well, you overlook the fact that I referenced the unions who did that, who traded away basic rights of workers in order to get union membership and exclusivity and to get industry superannuation funds on the tick list. So you overlook all of this stuff and you cook up another big welfare thing because apparently it's not good enough that we're spending billions of dollars on childcare already to pay other people to raise our children. I mean, this is outrageous, mate. But anyway, you're entitled to your view. I know you love big government. I'm a small government person, and I'm interested in knowing where the jobs of the future are going to come from because government cannot provide them in the the way we're going. Anyway, I'm looking for some support. So, Catherine, are you going to be the voice of common sense?
Yeah, look, I thought it was interesting that John Howard gave an exclusive to the Oz yesterday and just looked at some of the pathways out of this crisis when the economy starts to reboot. And he made a couple of longer term points that further reforms are necessary, I think, in the IR area. Nicholas, whatever you say about unions, and they do some good, but the fact is Australians have voted with their feet. The percentage of the unionised workforce as a whole has been in decline way back since the Accord. Bob Hawke presided over the height of the Australian union movement when he was at the ACTU. And from the time that he and Keating introduced enterprise-level bargaining in the early 1990s, union membership has been plummeting. It's strong in a couple of sectors only, and most people are exposed to the gig economy where they would, as Corey suggested, settle for an arrangement with an employer they've got some time for to make the business work according to some collaborative effort. And I'd double down on another thing. We've had a taste of what a carbon-free economy looks like with everything shut down, and some people telling us how wonderful it is to have the empty highways and the low emissions footprint. If we are now seeing, as I believe we are, the resurgence of the nation state as the primary arbiter of people's fortunes and their primary focus of allegiance, I'd tear the Paris Agreement up if I were this government, walk away from it tomorrow. The mining sector and coal are going to be the main sectors leading us out of this, as will agribusiness, and I'll get to that later when we talk about China. The agricultural sector, mining, and especially coal are all part of our future, and we were told 3 months ago by people all forecasting that coal was dead and that emissions, we needed to live in a zero emissions world. Well, we've had a bit of a taste of it now, and I don't think too many people are crazy about it.
Well, Catherine, thank you. Prue, you're self-employed and you've had staff on before. What do you think about more flexibility, the need for more flexibility in the industrial relations landscape?
Well, Nicholas and all these labour rights have playing the same old tune. The soundtrack from Frozen. Well, what's going to happen is they're frozen in time and they're going to be out in the cold. None of them have probably ever employed anyone, have had to go without paying a salary, their own salary, because they can't afford to because of cash flow issues, so that they can pay for their staff. I mean, this is the reality of running your business, where you mortgage your home. Everybody, union people think, and labour rights feel, that if you're running a business, you're making money. You aren't. Most often not. You are not making money. You're putting yourself on the line. And one thing that you want to do is to love your employees, to keep your employees happy, to do the right thing by them, and they will stick with you and be loyal to you and give you more. So this us and them attitude is really in the dark ages, and I'm so sorry that there's still people out there, these dinosaurs like Nicholas Albanese, all the rest of the Labor people, who think that we can't be cooperative. One of the good things about the coronavirus is that there's been an apolitical stance. Keneally and Albo are trying to make themselves relevant occasionally. But basically, they've been shut out because Morrison has dealt directly with the unions, as has Porter, of course, and they're actually making progress. And I honestly believe that if I was Morrison, I would be bypassing Albanese, the whole Labor Party. They're just a waste of space, and just deal directly with the unions. And I also believe that if you did a cooperative with the unions, if they were made to understand that if it's in their interests to be productive, to make a profitable company, and then they will profit from it. Maybe I would be suggesting profit sharing with the unions, something that's going to make them stop these absurd enterprise bargaining things, the notions of having free childcare, all this ransom they have to pay to get these buggers to just come and turn up and do a day's work. Well, that would change perhaps. So, we've got to get rid of this dinosaur thinking. If we want this country to become what it promises to be and to get out of this terrible crisis we're in economically, we have to have a brand new approach, a brand new attitude. And we've got to start by, I think, sidelining all the bloody Laborites. They are hopeless.